what is the definition of sin? It's an interesting question, right? How do you define sin? Well, I think this right here is a perfect example, perfect definition, I should say. Does what is forbidden in the Lord's commands. So let's open this up. Let's talk about this for a second. So the definition of sin, a really easy way to look at it is missing the mark. Imagine that you're playing darts and you've got a dartboard and a bullseye is directly in the center. Sin is anything that is not a bullseye. It is missing the mark, whether it's missing the mark by a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit, or it's missing the whole dartboard. That is sin, right? So when you look at it from God's point of view, the dartboard is righteousness, is holiness, is following his commands that he's laid out. And hitting a bullseye is what the target is, but anything outside of that is sin. And we'll talk about it. I hope that helps as a visual. Doing what is forbidden in the Lord's commands is what we have here in Leviticus. 1 John 3:4 gives a great definition. It's very simple. Sin is lawlessness. Lawlessness is the NIV. The King James says sin is transgression of the law. The New Living Translation says sin is breaking God's law. The Amplified defines lawlessness as ignoring God's law by action or neglect, or by tolerating wrongdoing, being unrestrained by his commands and his will. The Voice translation, which I'm excited to read, I actually just ordered a copy of it. It is a translation of the Bible that tries, similar to those translations that err on the side of thought for thought versus word for word. The goal is to have it be a modern day read, but done in a more poetic verse. So I do enjoy looking at how the Voice describes, and it says living in moral anarchy. And I really like that definition of sin, living in moral anarchy. If sin is defined by whatever feels good and whatever feels right by the heart, I mean, the Bible says that the heart cannot be trusted, that it's deceitful above all else and cannot be trusted, right? So when morality is dictated by what feels good to the heart, that is living in moral anarchy. It's a sliding scale that will always be changing, whereas God's law defines what is right and wrong. The way I like to look at sin is that it's the manufacturer that is saying to what he has created, to the consumer, so to speak, these are the do's and don'ts. And it's not because God is some cosmic killjoy that wants to take away all of our fun. No, he's saying, hey, do not take a hairdryer and dry your hair while you're in the bathtub. You're likely going to get electrocuted. And that's what the commands that are in this text are for, is for our protection, for our health, for our joy, for our peace. It's not bad because it's sin. It's sin because it's bad. Do you understand? So these things are bad for a reason. They're bad for a reason and should be avoided by mankind. And I could keep talking about this for a long time, but I like this definition of does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commands. So that's sin. We'll just leave it at that definition. Missing the mark, does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commands, not following God's call for your life. That's sin. So, but this says unintentionally. Unintentionally. So let's define that for a second.